Hi everyone, so it's Miss Kate again. I've decided to continue making some history videos because a little boy in year 4, I'm not going to say his name, but he's super cool, you probably know who he is, said, Miss Kate, your videos are cool. And I was like, really? I was having like a break from it because I thought they were rubbish, and he was like, no, you need to make some more. So here I am, guys. So this is about Queen Elizabeth, and it's going to talk about who she is, why she's important, what did she do, how did she get onto the throne. And I like Queen Elizabeth because, again, women empowerment. She ruled the country for 45 years all by herself. Okay, so she's a cool, significant individual to look at. Okay, so let's get started. So, who was Queen Elizabeth? So, she was a queen and she ruled England, Ireland, and Wales from 1558 to 1603. And if you do the maths, that's 45 years. That time period that she ruled is often referred to as the Elizabethan age. So, when we talk about that in history, we're talking about when she was ruling as a queen over those countries. So, why is Queen Elizabeth I so famous? One, she was a female. She ruled all by herself. She refused to get married. She didn't want to get married because she knew once she got married, that male would have more control, would kind of sway her direction, and she'd have to rule with him. And she didn't want that. She wanted to rule by herself. It was also a very unusual and different time, and especially when you get into year 6, you learn more about why she was such a significant individual and why her reign, while she was reigning as a monarch at the time, was so important, because there was lots of new ideas and discussions about religion. Explorers discovered new places. There was companies like the East End Company where they were making lots of money. This was the beginning of when the British Empire was growing, and I know we often talk about the British Empire with Queen Victoria, but it started mainly from here with Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I's family. So, she was the daughter of King Henry VIII, and she was born in 1533. And as you know, King Henry was not happy that he had a daughter. He wasn't happy about Queen Elizabeth being born because he wanted a son. And so her mother, who was Anne Boleyn, unfortunately was beheaded. He wasn't happy with Anne Boleyn because he wanted a son. Why did he want a son? Because we know during that time period, a son would take on the throne when King Henry passed away. So, when King Henry VIII was married to Anne Boleyn, again, he wasn't happy because she gave him a daughter and he wanted a son. After a few years or months, can't remember, do some research, guys, he decided to behead her, which means cut her head off. Not very nice. So he got rid of Anne Boleyn, and then he got remarried to someone called Jane Seymour, and they say that was the love of his life. It might be because Jane Seymour gave him a son, and the son was called Edward. So Edward was his stepbrother. So because Edward was born, it seemed very unlikely that Elizabeth wouldn't become queen, because one, Edward is younger. When King Henry passes away, Edward would become king, and in most cases that means that he would live to a long age, and Queen Elizabeth should have probably died before him because she was older, but that didn't happen. What happened was King Henry died in 1547, which obviously meant that his son Edward became king, but he died at a young age, okay, because he died from a disease. And because he died from a disease, there was no other male heirs to the throne, which meant that her sister Mary became queen. And then after Mary, it was Queen Elizabeth. So it was very, very unlikely for Queen Elizabeth to become queen, but she did, okay? So When Mary, her sister, was, she's an interesting monarch to look at as well, Mary. When Mary was queen, there was a rebellion against her. Not many people liked her ways or how she ruled the country. And this man called Sir Thomas Wyatt led a rebellion against her, and they wanted to get rid of her. Queen Mary assumed that Elizabeth was in on it with Thomas and was trying to plot against her so she could become queen. So what Mary did was lock up her sister in a tower for 8 weeks until they executed again, killing Thomas Wyatt. And then once they killed him, Mary said, yeah, you can let my sister free now. She's got no one to plot against me off the throne. Unfortunately, she died in 1558. Again, she had no children. So that automatically meant that Queen Elizabeth became queen. So what was she like as a queen? Okay, so she had a temper. She liked to have her way, and she ruled by herself. So the only people that helped her were her wise advisors. Ooh. She travelled around England visiting castles and grand houses. And people wanted her to get married because they thought, actually, if we have a male, he'll do a better job than a female. That perspective on for women was very, very different to how it is now. They didn't think women had much potential. And she was like, no, I don't want to get married. I don't need a male to help me. I will rule this country by myself. And again, she didn't want him, but just in case he managed to work some magic and become king. So she was just like, no thanks. That took me a lot of effort to get there. Anyway, Queen of England. Next in line to the throne was obviously James, who was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. He was also related to Elizabeth. He became King James I of England when Queen Elizabeth died in 1603. She was obviously buried in Westminster Abbey in the same tomb as her sister Mary. So, did you know facts? Did you know that when she was angry and she got cross and her temper was flaring, she would throw shoes at people? As her hair got thinner and began to fade, obviously with old age, she decided to wear a wig. Okay, so maybe in those pictures she was wearing a wig, we don't know. And Shakespeare, again, a famous writer during that time period, who is very famous still now. His actors would perform for her at Christmas, and she really enjoyed his work and the art he created. So what I want you to do, if you want to have a go at the task, you can create 6 questions that you want to ask, that you would like to have asked Queen Elizabeth if she was still alive. Now, I did this with some Year 2 children a few years ago, and they asked silly questions like, not all of them, just one of them, asked silly questions like, oh, when were you born? Now, we already know that. That's a silly question. I want you to ask the deep, interesting questions. And one of them was something like, how did you feel when your dad beheaded your mother? Ooh, I like that. So I want some interesting, intriguing, curious questions. So just 6, write them down. And if you want to do more and you want to send them to your teachers on Class Dojo, you can. If you were king or queen for the day, okay? If you were king or queen for the day, what would you do? Would you continue running the country like the king and queen does now? Would you make changes? Would you enjoy being a king or a queen for the country? If yes, explain why. If not, explain that as well. And I want you to explain what you would do as well. I think I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so those are the 2 tasks. Ask 6 interesting questions and a little paragraph about if you were king or queen for the day, what would you do? What would you change? How would you feel? Okay, there's some nice basic retrieval questions that you can answer and then check by going back to the video to see if you got the answers right. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will try my best to make some more. Speak to you soon. Bye, guys.